Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod with Matt Ellis. Matt is founder and CEO at 60 AI. He's managing partner at Sunny Venture. We're going to talk about startups today. We're going to talk about investing, mentoring, advising, writing, speaking, parenting, and everything in between. This pod is brought to you by my podcasting company. It's called podfire.com. If you want to start, scale, be invited to podcasts like this one. If you want to monetize podcasting the unconventional way, you can go to podfire.com. Matt, welcome to the pod. Glad to have you on. Can you tell me a bit more about yourself and your background?
It's great to be here. Hi, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love building startups. I built a company called Cloudability based here in Portland, Oregon, where I live today, which we sold to Vista Equity, and IBM bought the result last summer for $4.6 billion. And today I'm working on an AI-powered assistant that's creating the new LinkedIn called 60 AI.
So that's pretty bold, and pretty sure you have some competition in the field. Why did you choose that venture, and what do you hope to get in terms of product market fit?
So what I learned running other startups is the business model is very important. It's not just the best widget. You've got to get the best way to get people adopt it and pay for it. And I felt that productivity software for a long time has gone off the rails. It's about doing more, not about getting the same thing done in less time. And so we looked at AI as a way of helping do all these important things for you. And when we looked at it, we figured out that we needed to know who you knew to be able to make sense of your meetings, your follow-ups, your inbox, which then accidentally creates a LinkedIn, but with dynamic real time. And we know how well you know people and how well they know people. So now AI can help you make the introductions you never knew you needed to have.
So how would you do that precisely as a guy with a bunch of meeting in his calendar and someone that has thought thoughtfully about time management and energy return on investment? What would be the new magical approach to make Charles more productive and happier?
Well, the first thing we don't do is give you a tool you need to learn. So there's lots of stuff out there that put you in a walled garden, completely trash all your workflows. And we found out a lot of productivity tools don't work because they make you change, and everyone's productivity flow is their productivity flow. So the way we do it is we train the AI to look at what you're doing. We look at where you're moving emails, how you're replying to them, how they reply to you. At the beginning, you label things like this calendar's personal, that calendar's work. And we do need you to tag your smart meetings so that you tell this is a call, this is a pitch, this is a whatever. And you can use code. So you can say sales call, that means it's a pitch, or investor meeting. And then once that's set up, then the system learns who you're working with and who you should work with based on who you have been working with. And then when we do make introductions, we can see how well they work out. We can see how much you talk to each other, if you actually meet each other, and if it leads to further introductions down the line from that. As you know, from fundraising, a lot of people, you talk to a lot of people, but 1 in 10, 1 in 20 people are super connectors. They connect you to 5 people and they're all great meetings. And an AI can pick out that kind of performance and therefore reward the people who help you with the best introductions, with more introductions of their own, and kind of gamify the process. All the time being very privacy centric, so that people don't accidentally get introduced to someone because you're interviewing for a new job or you're having an affair with someone. There's a lot of privacy restrictions here.
Looking at my calendar with a bunch of podcasts, 10 of them on a daily basis, I have more money oriented goals next year. So I might cut off a couple of these podcasts because they're not only for short-term revenue.
Mm-hmm.
I have the ambitious goal of coaching 20 clients per day. So that is 100 per week. And that would go probably directly against your philosophy of freeing up your time. And like my coach slash therapist says, smelling the roses, which is something apparently that I need to do. But in this case, it seems to be aligned with my goal because I love talking about people, learning, networking with them. Obviously, I get paid for some of these podcasts because some of these folks, they actually buy my products. So what would you prescribe here? Because it seems nowadays I need to somewhat take a break for the holidays, take a breather. But usually I'm flowing through these heavy calendar heavy days. So what do you think about all of that?
When I say do more, I meant use the app more. So every product manager who runs a feature at Microsoft or wherever these things are built, Google, they measure success by, are you clicking on the tool more? So for example, Copilot comes out, the goal is to help you write more email, right? No one gets a reward for, oh, the usage went down because we're doing that for you. That's our real difference. So for example, you train our system by moving your emails, it starts to move them for you. So now you don't have to manage your inbox. You train us with the tags, it gives you your agenda for the day, can even schedule meetings for you. And then the people who you really want to schedule a meeting to get priority. So things like this means you're doing less work in the tool and more work with humans, because that's the problem right now. We've got these essential but very repetitive tasks the computer forces us to do when we should be doing is out there talking to other people. So if we can get the AI to do that for you, you've got more time, but also you've got better time. So I notice you use tools like Warmly to get hold of, to get briefings on people. Well, we build the briefing for you. We build multiple briefings. So you can have different briefings with each other. For example, if I've met you before and we're both 60 users, it will give you a summary of what we've been discussing in the meantime. And if you haven't been saying much, it might give you a summary of what you've been doing. So you can control these things for different contexts. If you're going to have a call with your mother, you want a different summary than if you have a call with someone like me. And so now the AI can do what a really good personal assistant would do. They know who your person you're meeting with, and they can provide the appropriate information to make the meeting go better and make the follow-up go better. When we're done, we're called 60 because everything takes less than 60 seconds. So when you're done, you can open our app and record a short message of what you promised to do, what they promised to do, anything you learn, and any follow-up. And it will draft the email for you and put it in the drafts folder. And it will tell you at the end of the day if you sent them one. And it'll give you a score at the end of the week about how much you followed up, and then never mention it again. It doesn't build up in a long backlog of things you've never done. And again, this is just a very human way of helping humans be humans and do the computer work for you.
It still seems that humans are guiding AIs in terms of innovation, because being in cold email AI outreach and being a value-added guy, not a spammer, I always want to start with an intro to my emails that is valuable for the person that I am talking
Right.
to. And usually nowadays, what I'm promoting is commonalities / overlaps between
Right.
Charles and Matt.
Right.
These, in my opinion, some of these best overlaps in a business context, right? Oh, we're both podcasters, we're both startups obsessed. What would be some of these best commonalities or overlaps to open a conversation, in your opinion?
Well, so for example, a good icebreaker, if you've never met someone before, are geographical, educational, or work overlaps. So maybe you both worked at the same company, or you may have worked at companies that were rivals. So, for example, I used to work at Goldman Sachs. If you worked at Credit Suisse or Merrill Lynch or something, then it can be a great icebreaker to start the meeting and understand that we both come from a similar background. Sometimes it's things that you're tweeting about or you're writing about on Facebook. So you might be saying, I like the Formula One in Las Vegas. And you go, well, what do you think about next year's stuff? I used to, before the computers came, I used to always read the sports page before I go to meetings. So I could talk about something. Do you like golf? Do you like football? Whatever. I don't know what you like. If I've read the paper today, then I can talk about whatever you like. And we got some commonalities there. So you're right, commonalities are important. But a lot of this can be done like the computer just gives you a spur. So today, for example, one of our investors, it's his birthday, and it drafted a message. It said, "Dear Flo, happy birthday. Do you know you share your birthday with Nostradamus?" And the computer made a joke. It said, "I bet you didn't see that coming. Have a good one." Right? So, the computers can really help. And sometimes it gets it wrong. We never send a message without the human reviewing it. My birthday, it said, on this day in 2005, Terry Schiavo won a battle to turn off a live sport machine and died. So we feed them into another computer, another AI to filter for controversial things, but we need the human to make it their own. And you can set the tone. You can be jokey, you can be factual, you can be professional. But we're just trying to get the conversation going. And you know what? When it doesn't work, you just delete it. You do the next one. You don't have to do them all.
And what's the bridge to business? What's the best bridge to business? Once we've done the personal stuff, is it like, oh, yeah, what's the best bridge to business?
The best bridge to business is the last meeting and conversation you have with them. So by taking 60 seconds to record your thoughts from the meeting, you can take 60 seconds as you go into the meeting to reload where we come off. For example, we had a chat a couple of weeks ago, and neither one of us can easily recall any of the details of that meeting. But imagine if you went back in and you had your 60 seconds of notes, but properly formatted, and any changes that happened in between, like any well-known tweets that you posted in the meantime, or something on LinkedIn that got a lot of likes. So you can talk about that instead if you like.
Yeah, and if you didn't have a meeting before, it could be something on his LinkedIn that's related to
Yeah,
business. I really like your last post about
yeah,
podcasting, and
yeah,
yeah, that
yeah.
is so true, right? Like people can produce more content through podcasting, and I have a system that can help you scale
Right.
that. And then
Where this really comes into its own is where the AI proactively recommends introductions. So you might be looking for someone, but you might not know that, for example, you're on a flight next week, and I've known you for 10 years, and you've known them for 10 years, and we should probably introduce each other, or maybe get an Uber back from the airport. There's all sorts of opportunities to make a connection that passes by every day that an AI can help point out in a privacy sensitive way.
so AI just picks out like a bunch of existing data, but I think it's pretty poor at prediction making, just like humans,
Well, it
arguably.
learns. So it learns. So what happens is with our first users, it's going to be pretty poor, and the users will make or not make introductions. But as those introductions happen or don't happen, then the computer can really come into its own in a way that a human couldn't. Plus, of course, there's this major privacy side of it, which is there's no human reading your email or your messages or whatever. We don't read emails, but like the topics or the meetings or who you're meeting with or how often you go there, it's all done in a way that no one but you and the computer knows going on.
But you think AI can soon be better at us top humans at making predictions and innovating, making
Not making
discoveries?
predictions, it's making inferences. So it's seen a lot of people over here fail at this, a lot of people over here succeed at that, and it will start to move towards this. I mean, a simple example is, should I take a meeting with you? Right? How well do I know you? How well are you known in the world? How well do you know the people I know? Are all important topics when it comes to deciding whether to take a meeting. Sometimes there's no data. Sometimes you come out the blue and the computer has no data and the human has no data. But more times than not, you come through someone you know, there was some event you both went to, there's some pattern of behavior you both have that the computer can use to infer what for you is a successful meeting versus for someone else. Of course, different people want different types. You're doing 20 coaching sessions a day. I might want to have the phone not ring and get down and read a book or think about some product designs, right? So again, there are cohorts of people. We've been doing this for years in advertising. I did 10 years in online advertising. At one point, we could predict your credit score by your IP address to a resolution of 7 homes. So now we decide whether to show you a Volvo or a Ford advert, right? That was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? So we can start building that based on people clicking on ads or responding to deals. Then we can start to build who should be meeting with whom.
AI has seen some great progress this year. I think next year will be the years of agents. What will the world be like once you and I can deploy a bunch of agents and sit back and relax? Will there ever be such a world, or we will just reinvent our time into stuff that only us humans can have a firm grasp on?
I think that's where it goes. I mean, if you take, for example, something as simple as PowerPoint, it used to be that you'd write on a piece of clear film, and then it was you could print on it. And then PowerPoint comes out and you do a lot more stuff. And then TED comes out and TED Talks completely changed the standard. So now we've got to have all these typefaces, all this great clip art, stock photos, and we've got to have practice and we've got to talk and look at the camera. And so sometimes we don't do more of it, we do it better. We do it to a higher standard, right? And I think that if you have someone whispering in your ear, telling you about everyone, then the norm for networking becomes higher. It becomes, if you don't remember your friends' kids' names, then it's offensive, whereas before it was understandable. And the people who do this first and best will get ahead over others that lag behind.
Right.
And
Seems
so
like
I
the
think,
bar keeps getting higher and higher.
yeah,
And then the
yeah,
question is it getting tougher for the newcomers in the markets? I don't
yeah,
think so, because I
always.
think they'll just adapt quicker, and old people that are not using AIs will
Yeah.
become obsolete pretty quick, which is
Yeah,
also
I mean, I'll give you an
concerning.
example. Give you a really simple example. In the 90s, before we had Windows computers and network connections between offices, well, I was working at PepsiCo, and we would send out floppy disks over the mail with a spreadsheet on, and people would add the numbers and send it back. And it took about a half dozen people about 6 weeks to gather all the numbers for next year's annual operating plan. And sometimes there'd be phone calls going, "That's a high number, or that's a low number." Well, I automated that process. so that we could now email you a spreadsheet or put a spreadsheet up on the internet and people fill in the numbers. 4 years later, there were 100 accountants, and this process took 9 months because we'd moved from gathering the data to asking the questions. And we'd always wanted to ask these questions. We wanted to ask them all the time in real time. Now we could. So there was all this extra work that happened to make the business better. And the savings there were hundreds of millions of dollars a year in efficiency savings that came through better products, lower prices, and bigger profits. And that's the sort of thing that happens. This is where we become more productive. We get better at what we're doing. And like if you look at cars, price of cars before COVID hadn't gone up in North America for 25 years. But if you compare a 1993 Corolla with a 2018 Corolla, they're fundamentally different cars. So although the price stood still, the products got better and better and better. Whenever they could make a price cut, instead of cutting the price, they put another feature in there. And companies like Saab, who weren't able to do that as well, they went out of business. They couldn't keep up, right? So that thing about obsolescence, you're absolutely right. And the new people who figure out how to use the tools in the right way. And here's a silly example for you. Take any business card and scan it into ChatGPT and say, give this to me in a VCF format. You've now got a card scanner. This is an app people have been trying to write for years. They have all these people in the Philippines looking at scans of your card and typing them in for you. Now you can actually do this if you ever have a stack of cards. And there's all sorts of little things like this where the computer can do things. Before, the cards would just sit on your desk and wouldn't get into your database. Now you might actually do that.
Makes me think about all these micro use cases, these micro niches, but in PepsiCo would probably have paid the consultant like at least $3 million to fix that one.
I
Do
was that
you,
consultant.
yeah. So, thanks
We
for,
created the whole technology around it. Yeah,
there you
sorry.
go.
Yeah.
As a startup nerd, do you ever dream of an AI-led product market fit machine, a scraper that would be deployed throughout the web and return like 100 product market fit ideas with
Right.
the amount of time invested and the amount that you could get paid? Do you ever dream of that?
I wouldn't know what the corpus of data would be for that because there's so much bullshit about startups that's
Public
not
data
true.
on publicly listed companies, the S10, are
No,
these
no,
what they're
but
called?
for the startups, the product market fit, you need earlier data. So all the pitch decks, all the comments by startup CEOs on podcasts, you really can't hold much credence to them. So the computer would be analyzing all the bullshit that people say and trying to make a prediction on what's a good business or where there's a gap would be hard. A really good example is if you saw that Google demo of Gemini, the researchers talked about reading 200,000 papers to find the 250 that had new data, and then to summarize the new data to update their existing study, right? There's very structured data in scientific proposals. I think that's one of the next things for AI to figure out is how to deal with less structured data and to kind of really get the nuance of here's a TikTok video, here's Taylor Swift talking about something, rather than is written in a report.
Right. I can try to suggest something to that. So the beta version would deploy an army of agents that would send cold email and see at least if we could get potential meetings. Then there would be virtual twins deployed on these Zoom calls that would take notes and sense the interest, then automate the Stripe links to see if we could get first users from this data. It would return. After that, it could build virtual avatars of and a simulation of going out and play itself again up until it has a super product market fit machine that would return you opportunities. And I'm not sure where humans would be needed in there. Would be a scary world also.
It's funny, a former colleague of mine, he started a startup to try and do that called Endgame. And what he's looking for is exactly what you described, right? And he raised a ton of money and he's been working at that for the last few years. A guy called Alex Bilmes. You might want to get him on your podcast.
I will. I appreciate the intro.
I will.
What if you could do that, but from a betting perspective on the VC side of things? How could you run a simulation of what deals could potentially turn out with AI data? Have you thought about such a machine?
That would be great. What I would do to do that and this is the challenge. The challenge also often becomes access to sensitive data. So, for example, if you combined all the emails a VC had with investment memos and outcomes for the last 10 years, I bet you could find some bullshit signals. I bet you could find some signs where don't take these guys seriously. And I think you could also find signals where these guys are brilliant. They're just terrible salespeople. So as an investor, I meet lots of people who are brilliant, 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 and they don't know hell about how to sell, market their product, or they've got just a tweak to their business model they need. So I'm sure that VCs could do that. I'd be surprised if a few of them aren't already trying. I'd worry that. Do you remember Nate Silver talking about baseball and then politics?
Nope.
So Nate Silver started a very famous podcast. He accurately predicted one of the elections when people said he couldn't using data. And before that, he predicted baseball results. And people said there's no way a computer could beat a highly trained sports pundit. But it turns out they were wrong, right? But what he triggered was a really interesting response where people who were worried they might be shown to be wrong were shown to be wrong. And I think the VCs might be reluctant to do this because it might highlight how much how much less than chance they are at picking great winners. You know, it might be a reason
Yeah.
not to do it.
It's like humans are complex, but they're not that complex. If I project myself right now, Charles is a serotonin slash motivation system. So if I get that right, if Charles has bots, I'm somewhat predictable in how much I will earn or the success that I will have. It's just hard to get all that data. Let's say that it's a founder with academia, right? Who's his co-founder? Is his co-founder incredibly good at execution? Do they motivate one another? So it would be to kind of plug all your data out there. And I think there will be such an algorithm, like a public Charles API to see my output, to see how much did I earn, and people could bet on me. What do you think about that?
I think I think that's the final stage. I think there are intermediate stages where you get the data that allows you to synthesize that data. All right. These things go through iterations. So, for example, the first one might be how does um, like timeliness to meetings turn up to execution ability, or what are some of the characteristics? If I go through my top 10% of companies, my bottom 10% of companies, what can I tell? So there's another company out there called Data Robot that were in Techstars the year after us, Jeremy Aiton and his team, and they were insurance nerds who showed us how to find the correlation when you didn't even know it was there. And what they did was they got a lot of data from New Jersey car dealers, and they put it in the system, and they said, what is the correlations here? We don't know. Tell me some correlations. And they found that the biggest sign that a car was going to be returned under the Lemon Law was that the wheels were damaged. So if we're buying a second-hand car, check the state of the wheels. It's like 5 times stronger signal. Now, they didn't know they were looking for that correlation. They just threw the data in there. They might have said, red cars are more likely to have an accident, all right? They just found this really strong correlation. By the way, correlation is not causation, okay? So I'm sure if you pull the data in, you could find some things that you may know on a hunch, or you didn't know you knew, but like now that confirms this. The problem is that once people know this, then they start to avoid it and they purposely change their behavior. So it's always a kind of whack-a-mole game. And I think so you give the humans some extra data to make their decision making better, and then you do another version of that. So these things take time. And the biggest barrier is not the computer, but the human. So at Cloudability, my last startup, we saved our end users over $10 billion in cash. That's $10 billion into better products, better salaries, better profits, all that stuff, right? Getting people to use the software was like pulling teeth because they were afraid that you were showing their bosses how you're doing it wrong. And the amount of arguments that people would come up with to tell that they were perfectly spending. And one company fired us because we were showing they're wasting 35 cents on every dollar. They said, I'm centered on growth. And if I show this, I'm going to have to do it. 5 years later, during COVID, there's all these postings about how they saved all this money. Like, you fuckers, you spent the last 5 years wasting a third of it. We showed you 5 years earlier how to do this, right? So getting people to get better, the whole basis of economics is that people always try and get better. I don't think they do. I think they're forced to get better by competitors who are better than them, and they react.
Yeah, and
No one does this voluntarily, it seems.
in corporate shit gets weird.
Oh, yeah.
Like for example, I work with clients, and yesterday I had that conversation with detractor, like we're 2 or 3 in the meeting, and one guy just doesn't like me because he views me as a threat. He think I will
Right,
have him lose his
right,
job.
right.
So there's
That's
these
the biggest
adverse
opposition to
forces.
change. All right.
Yeah.
So if the data takes away your power or exposes a weakness, they'll go to war on you to stop you from seeing it. And that's one of the biggest headwinds on AI. People are frightened of it. And you know what? They should be, because there's a time in our lifetimes when a computer might be as valuable as a human now. It'll be a $2 billion computer. But the problem with that is if it happens, it means that now people are as valuable as computers. And that's a real problem for society. So for the, I'm not surprised. This is one of those technologies where we really do need to be intentional as a group. And we've not got a good track of doing that, of deciding how to treat all this.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, why do I grind so hard? And you come from the same DNA strand,
Hmm.
ambitious and always pushing the envelope
Hmm.
further. But there's a price to complacency, there's a price to chilling. And also I just don't feel much comfortable and happy when I'm chilling. The main
Well,
source of happiness is growing 1% daily on a daily basis and adapting.
right. That's what we did in AdTech, by the way. We improved our algorithms a percent every week. And by the end of the year, you're 50% better. But, I mean, labels in psychology and brand performance, labels are very important because we can unintentionally prejudge things. So, for example, you might call it chilling, a guru might call it balance, right? So, if you take like the world's best athletes, they make sure they go to bed on time, they eat very carefully. They're not being prima donnas, they're very carefully calibrating how they do the best work. So rather than just trying to run harder, they feed themselves better fuel and they rest more and they meditate so they can focus on the goal and stuff like this. And so sometimes, there's this idea of you can work too hard and now you're blunt. You're the blunt saw. You can sharpen the saw, not by chilling and playing a video game and watching some TV, but by resting your brain, giving it time to recover, or expanding it in other ways, like reading a book. Like reading a book can be chilling, or it could be improving your concentration because you keep getting distracted. Your phone goes off, your kids walk in. No, I'm going to read the book. Now I can focus for longer periods. I can absorb larger ports of information. So sometimes, you look at a lot of very successful people say, I wouldn't have got here if I hadn't worked so hard. But now I've gotten here, the way I get ahead now is to be very picky about what I do and how I do it. And I'm very particular about things. And for me, for example, I'm very particular about my spaces. I won't mix spaces. I won't watch TV in the area I work because emotionally I need to focus on work and rest separately. I will make sure I get rest. Last night I didn't get to bed on time and I felt very tired this morning. I'm not doing my best work today. So when I was younger and I could keep going, I would work late. Now I'm older, I have to work smarter, you know? So I mean, I think there's a lot of you switch to the chilling thing. I think that there's a lot of different ways to get there, and we change, so the ways change with us.
Yeah, and everyone's different, like
Mm.
nowadays, me, it seems I'm stuck in warrior mode and always doing and always improving, and I have a hard time chilling. But is that even a problem?
If that's what
Sometimes,
gives you joy and strength, then you shouldn't,
yeah.
right?
But
And if
there's like symptoms like for example, today I woke up I lost my iPhone on the Spartan race 2 weeks ago. So I have this new iPhone. It shut down this morning. So the alarm didn't went off. Yesterday I woke up on time, but I woke up breaking a glass. I dropped a brand new glass that I bought, and boom, that's how I woke up. So I have these data, but I don't want to stress upon them. I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to take some actions to chill, to take a break.
the challenge is, this is there's a missing set of data, which are people who failed or regretted the choices. All right. People don't talk about, I wish I'd done it differently. So, for example, for me, one of my superpowers has been I can keep going no matter what. So, I worked at Goldman Sachs for a few years. I often go out all night and then I come in the next morning, 5, 6 o'clock, change my shirt, go back to work, have a 20-minute nap at lunch. Right. I once worked 4 days in succession to get a video game shipped on time. Okay. So now, because I could, I did. So I could get more work done than other people. No one worked harder than me at my companies. Well, 10 years ago, I'm diagnosed with a condition called adrenal fatigue. I can't go to sleep when I need to, right? It shortens your life, shortens your focus, your concentration. So I had to change my lifestyle. And, it was a superpower I had when I was younger. If I'd known then what I knew now, I probably would have dialed it down. I would have been much more disciplined about going to bed. I squandered the capability, right? And people don't talk about this. They don't say, I wish I'd done it differently. And not like a regret, like I should have known, but now I got the data. I wish I could have gone back and given it to me. There's a lot of data missing from life, and you make the right choice, as it seems. And then later you find out something else. It turns out there was a better way, a more productive way. So I think that, and also we also have a problem of the loudest voices are heard the most. The people quietly nailing it. I mean, people like, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they didn't do a lot of it. Drove a modest car, lived in a modest house, built $100 billion fortune, right? And Musk did it a completely different way, right? So I think you see the people who succeeded, and you don't see the people who failed there. And I think you don't hear what the regrets are. You don't hear Elon Musk saying much. I wish I'd done it a different way. The guy who founded Nvidia, he was in the Wall Street Journal last weekend, and he said, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't. I had no idea how hard it was going to be. And I kind of feel the same way. Like when I was 15 and I started my first business, I thought I'd be a millionaire in 10 minutes, right? If I'd known it would be 30 years later, I might not have done it. I might have taken a different path, right? So I think that's wisdom, is knowing what you didn't know. Wisdom's like intelligence is knowing tomatoes are fruit. Wisdom's knowing not to put it in the fruit salad. And we learn that as we go. So, but when I was younger, I had nothing. I didn't go to university. All I had was smarts and hard work. So I threw myself at it 100%, and it worked out okay for me.
The Nvidia guy, I'm not sure if he says that just to sound cool, because saying that
Yeah,
out loud sounds very personal and brutal.
yeah.
It's almost like you've said, like, I wish I would spend more time with my wife and kids, and
If it
I've
felt that
damaged
way,
that. Yeah.
it felt that way in the headline. When you read the article, it's authentic. He talks about the shame, the guilt, the mistakes. I mean, he really is saying, yeah, it was really hard. There's all these things that should have gone right that went wrong. Stuff that was really obviously right and still didn't work out. And, he's saying, I'm happy I'm a billionaire, but it was jolly tough getting here, you know?
I'm pretty sure I'll reach, billions, if not trillions, and I won't mess up my kids' education, though. Like that, I'm pretty sure about. I can't give the data why, but let's see. I certainly don't want to mess up that part. Imagine having a kid that don't like you, like Elon, for example.
Yeah.
Seems
Well, here's
pretty
something.
brutal, and seems like a clear failure in any
Well,
regards of the equation.
yeah, I mean, I was away a lot. I have 3 children. I had 3 children under 3 when I started Cloudability in 2011. And my wife, big supporter, worked very hard to give the kids a healthy, satisfying life. And of course, I come home and the kids are like, Daddy, because they get to see me much, right? You put them in the car, and occasionally one of them would act up. They go, blah, 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 put their arms up, right? And you'd scold them and you'd say, don't do that, and put them back in the seat. Well, I think the middle one was like 6 or 7 years old before I realized that they just wanted to be noticed. And that I was never noticed by my dad. He was working too hard. So one time, blah, 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 and instead of scolding them, I said, who wants to be noticed by daddy more? And he went like this, right? And I had a completely different relationship with my children after that. I had no idea how important it was for me to be present with them. They didn't need me to bring them more money, more toys, more opportunities, more hugs. They wanted more me. And so the quality versus quantity thing, but no one tells you this. And maybe it's different for everyone. For me, maybe I'm different like that. But like fundamentally shifted my relationship with my kids from being the guy who, when you're in trouble, dad's going to kill me, to when you're in trouble, I better get hold of dad. He's going to help me, right? And there's a lot of old-fashioned ideas around raising children, but like just being present enough to shut up and listen and watch and see what works better. Very hard when you're very busy.
Right. Wow. Very
And of
good.
course, you don't know if it's going to work out until they're like 30 years old. And are they happy and settled, or are they unsettled and unhappy? You don't get another go. There's no control Z on it.
Yeah, and you certainly don't want that resentment at 30 years old and be the parents that kids are like, yeah, I just don't have any relationship with my parents.
Right.
Wow, great lessons throughout. Thank you for today, Matt. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, come to 60.app to find out more about what we're working on. And my briefing is at 60.co/Matt Ellis. That's Matt with 1 T.
I was Matt Ellis and Charles Cormier for another CEO Wisdom podcast.com.